How you feel about who Kamala picked for her VP running mate?
Tampon Tim. This is the fool that signed off on putting tampons in the bathrooms for the boys. Now, you figure out what is he trying to do? Why would we have tampons in a boy's bathroom? I mean, is it so some boys can have a trans fantasy or something? Or is it the girls are supposed to come in there? Oh, yeah, they do sometimes. There was an incident a few years ago in South Central LA in what they used to call the Southern League. It was over at Jefferson High School. And there was some 15-year-old girl that wanted to be a boy, and she kept going into the boys' bathroom. So some of the thugs decided to block the door and say, "You don't want your nookie, we'll take it." So they gang raped her. She got pretty badly brutalized, and people say, "Oh, it's horrible what they did." Yeah, it is horrible what they did. That's why we have criminal law. That's what I did to earn a living for a long time, is deal with the consequences of somebody not doing what they're supposed to do. But it happens. That's like cash money. It's legal tender. So I got a big roll of cash. I'm going to go to the wrong part of town, like right down this street we're off of right here, and I'm going to flash my roll. Well, I have a right to, but somebody's going to try to hijack me, and I'm going to probably be tested to see if I can handle what I think I can handle. So you get somebody out there saying, "I've got a right to do it." Yeah, you do, but somebody's going to snatch your stuff, whether it's cash or nookie. You just don't do this. This is a full move. Full move. You don't put the young girl in the boys' bathroom. So why does Tampon Tim put these things in a boy's bathroom and then sign off on it's okay to set your kid up and get him in line to be mutilated, or your girl get her stuff off before she even knows what's going on? And out in California, that's Kamala's place out there, out in California. Governor Newsom, what is the new nickname that Trump's out for him? He's got a new nickname for him. That kind of stuff out there where he signs into law a new California statute that says it's a crime for a school teacher to tell a parent that they're trying to mutilate their child and say convert him into something else. It's absolutely ridiculous. So what are they doing? Why are we letting all these illegals across the border and nobody's looking at them? What the hell have we got going here? This is nothing that makes sense except for one thing. They're trying to convert people to a new faith, a rainbow faith. You can't put a cross, a crescent, six-pointed star, Shiva, Buddha, anything in a school, state office building, Capitol building, Congress, but you can put that rainbow. And Mama told everybody, if you don't go to church, temple, synagogue, mosque, you can't go anywhere else the rest of the week. So your little kid sitting up in there bored to death, and you're listening to the preacher, and you want to be everywhere else but there. But after a while, guess what? You become a devout believer. Well, they have freaks dressed up in clown costumes, dressed up as harlots, and they're reading interesting little stories to the kids in preschool in the public libraries and daycares, and then kindergarten through 12th grade, every day of the week, all school day long. They're getting force-fed this rainbow stuff, so when they come out, they're converts. And now you have new members of this cult. Now, some years ago, long years ago, there was a guy named Ray. And Ray was a Chicano, good brother, became a professor at UCLA, married a black woman who was a professor. And we had something we call third world. So what we did is black folk took Native Americans, Asians, and Hispanics around, and everybody would take everybody else around. So we went to a place south of Tijuana in Mexico. It was outside of Ensenada. If you go on Carnival steamship lines, one of their cruises will stop through there. It's an interesting place. But when we went through there 55 years ago, people were living on this dirt hill. It's filthy. They had to walk for water 1.5 miles and carry it back in these rusted out pails. And the children just had on tops, naked from the waist down until they got about 10 because they didn't have anywhere to wash and they didn't want them to get ulcerated, full of sores. And they'd catch roaches, big cucarachas, and they'd roast them on unbent clothes hangers. And Ray was going off on this Catholic priest who was encouraging this woman who had 20, 25 some children. I don't think but 9 or 10 of them were still alive. And that priest was telling this woman that she was being a good Catholic because she was bringing all of these Catholic souls into the world. And there was plenty of room for them because there was this border that wasn't God's border. And they could go up there when they got here, and God willing, they would be taken care of. So you're getting more Catholic souls into existence. Well, that seems to be exactly what's going on right here. The border's wide open, and you're getting new recruits to this cause. Now, the interesting thing about this rainbow faith that is unlike any other in the world's history is every single other religion, whether it was pagan, polytheist, or monotheist, or philosophical like Buddhism, was an attempt to develop appropriate character in its followers. In other words, to behave appropriately as a human male or human female. And the basics are pretty universal across time, across continents, amongst all cultures. It arose from the fact that at one point we were hunters and we had long sticks or poles with sharp rocks, and we were taking down stuff that could squash us, so you needed to depend on your fellow hunter. The women went out and they gathered, and they needed to be able to depend upon themselves for support. So we have these things about character. This faith is the only one ever that is not trying to build character, it's trying to destroy it. In other words, there's no morality, no ethics, anything goes. There's no guilt, no shame, because anything you do is okay. There's no need to be brave, courageous. There's no need to be conscientious, to understand consequences, to deal with duty, honor, and obligation, because you have none. Do what you want to do. It's all about you. Nobody learns how to compete growing up because that might help hurt somebody's self-esteem. So everybody is entitled and everybody gets a participation ribbon. The person who wins is downed and shunned almost because his excellence, her excellence is not recognized, and the person who finished dead last gets the same recognition, a participation ribbon. So this thing is about the destruction of morality, ethics, and character. So people have no purpose. They are not committed to making where they live better, safer, more secure places filled with economic prosperity, and where they become men and women dedicated to public peace, dignity, and order, and offended badly when somebody transgresses upon these things. So this is a movement of no guilt, no shame, no rules. Anything goes. Now, granted, LGBTQIA plus used to be LGB. It didn't have the T on it. T got put in, and that's the fake. You trying to play something you're not. And a lot of the gay boys didn't like the idea of, they think it's a boy, but it turns out to be a girl. And I worked with enough lesbians out in Hollywood to know good and well they certainly didn't want to be angling on what they thought was a cute girl, to find that he still had swinging and bouncing equipment down there. They certainly didn't like it, but they included that in a working coalition. And then when you get the whole thing about intersectionality, you start getting pedophilia in there. And a lot of the folk that were involved had bad experiences when some creep, some pervert turned them out when they were children, and this was somebody grown. And then you have this mess in California and other places where it is not a crime, a felony, if the child consents to the sexual activity. Now, they can't even consent to buying whiskey or wine or beer until they get 21, but here they are, 11 years old children. They aren't even into puberty, and they're supposed to be able to consent to this kind of mess. It's just absolutely astonishingly stupid and corrupt and immoral. Keep your hands off the children. But you see, these kind of things are what we have pushed today. So where are we going with this? Do we passively go along with this and see black people get victimized by this as badly as anybody? So when you start saying, I don't care, I'm going to vote because she's a skin kid. No, what about the rest of this picture? What about the guys who are waiters that when I'd close down a place and just stay, I'd read. I know some of them want to talk to me. I'm approachable. These young men would come over and talk, and after 2 or 3 times on different occasions, they said, can I confide in you? Go right ahead, young man. What's the problem? I just can't get over this. I was coming downstairs to get a drink of water. We lived over in the projects. I know they have 2 floors. And there was my mama down there, and she didn't have any clothes on with this other woman, and they were doing these strange things on the couch. And then I'd never seen anything like this, and it's like, wow, what's going on? Okay, why didn't she go someplace else? But then again, when I get to listening to this kid, I get told how his mama used to talk to him. That N-word wasn't popular in the early 70s, except when you went over and you saw some young girls who had babies starting at 13, 14, 15 years old. And they'd say, little Ian, go get me my cigarettes. Little Ian, go get me my beer. And you just like your no good in-ass daddy. You ain't worth this, that, and the other. And they heard this over and over. And then by the late 1980s, I started hearing that word again. And then I realized that this kid who was 7 years old in 1977, 76, that I ran into because I had to go out there to interview his mama because she wouldn't come down to the office to be interviewed, even though she had a case. This kid's not 7 years old, 8 years old. He's 17 or 18 now in 1986, 1987. 1996, 1997. He is 28 years old. 2007, he's 38 years old. 2017, he's 48 years old, and now this guy's got a lot of gray hair in his head. And yeah, he's been listening to this for a long time because in his family, they start having babies at 11 years old, 10 years old, and it really gets kind of creepy. So it's like the destruction of the black family, the destruction of the families of America. And what it looks a great deal like is the whole atmosphere on an old slave plantation where they had a lot of slaves, where the master could sell off the surplus, put what he had to work, and he could make a lot of money. So he wanted his livestock to multiply for fun and profit and for sellability. So we have that kind of thing going on, and it's not good. We've got to change that.
Yeah, we definitely got to change that. So it's safe to say that you're not a fan of who Kamala picked for VP, right?
I've got a phrase. They want us to do the hyena waltz. So you go into the ballroom and you prance around doing something I call the hyena waltz. The grinning hyena with the rictus grin on her face while she tries to corrupt you. And Tampon Tim. So where is America going if we go there? I think it's going to hell, or at least to an earthly purgatory, and it also sets us up to have happen what happened to Great Britain 100 years ago. Great Britain got kind of a fit. It was a little, I say, that isn't the thing to do. It's a little rough around the edges and all of this. And England went from being probably the most powerful country in the world. Now it's third rate. Its colonies, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Kenya, Nigeria, India, Pakistan, South Africa, all of them are more powerful. What is it? BRICS? Brazil, Russia, India, China, etc., South Africa, etc., setting themselves up to be an alternative to the trading group that we represent. It still has England in it, and England has a few decrepit nukes, so I guess they maintain their status. But the People's Republic of China is having man-up campaigns, and Russia is having man-up campaigns, and we are having a thing about my two mommies or my two daddies, and I mean, we have to allow that kind of thing. It's kind of like you have the First Amendment, free speech. That's being suppressed now thanks to the Democratic Party, the blue side. But the way to deal with opposition to speech you don't like is to have a better presentation, more logic, more information, more experimental basis for your position that you can demonstrate. And you overcome it by having a free, open market of ideas. And one of the things that's important is that when we live in a society like we do now, we have to understand the concept of collateral damage. It's like when we operate our vehicles and we're on the freeways going 65 miles an hour, 55 miles an hour, that is a great opportunity to get killed or badly mutilated. And we accept those collateral consequences because of the conveniences that are requisite in this modern automotive transportation thing. Whether you're driving your own vehicle, whether you're riding a train, a subway, an elevated, whether you're on an airplane or a bus, or in a limo. You take your life in your hands, literally, when you get in an automotive device. But we accept the collateral consequences. There are some collateral consequences to being in a society like ours, and we have to accept those collateral consequences as necessary if we want the benefits of what our system is about. Now, I know there are a lot of people that say, oh, this is horrible and all of this, that, and the other, and we don't need to have any part of it. And I challenge them. I said, well, okay, if we don't, then come up with a better idea. And they can't.